Here the day after January 1st. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a good holiday season. It's a grind going through those holidays, is it not? On this Tuesday afternoon show, we take you right up until 6 Eastern on the great SiriusXM 82. A lot of college football those first 2 hours. Let's move along for a sec and get into the NFL, since obviously they concluded their regular season on Sunday. There's a couple things to say here before we get started. Number one, I don't think I've ever seen an NFL Week 17 where literally I took a nap in the middle of the first game window. I took a nap. I went to sleep at probably about 5 to 2, and I woke up at about 3:10. I don't think ever I've done that, and the reason is simple. There was absolutely nothing to watch. You could not find a football game, and we'll do Peter King tomorrow, by the way. We wanted to save him tomorrow, get the college out of the way. We'll do Ira tomorrow, too. There was nothing, and Gary D will join us this week. And Friday at 5. How about that for Gary D? You got Brent, you got Phil. Thursday at 5 for Gary. Looking forward to that. So you got plenty of things going on with the guests this week. But I don't think I've ever taken a nap at 1:55 on a weekday, on a Sunday afternoon, Week 17, and slept for an hour and 15 minutes. That's how bad the games were as far as the college football, as far as the NFL is concerned, the final week of the season at 1 o'clock. I mean, it was nothing to watch. I mean, literally nothing. You knew the Jets were never going to beat the Patriots in New England, no matter what. You knew the Bears are not going to beat the Vikings in Minnesota. Not that that game meant a lot anyway, but you knew that wasn't going to happen, and you knew that, you know, and you didn't really care about Pittsburgh and Cleveland. And if the big story of your day is that he put Roethlisberger, he gave him a week off and didn't even put him in uniform, if that's the big story of the day, well, I mean, that tells you where you stand as far as the NFL is concerned in the 1 o'clock window. A lot of people were apoplectic that somehow Tomlin, disregarded the Browns and could care less about home field that much, where he gave Roethlisberger the week off. I mean, the Patriots are not losing the game. So unless you want to make a big deal about, the Browns going 0-16 and, be legit and play the game right out, why would Pittsburgh play Roethlisberger in a game? It's not like Roethlisberger needs to work, and it's not like Roethlisberger is not going to be able to handle having basically, 3 weeks off before he plays another regular season, another NFL game of note. He's not like he's 20 years old. I mean, he's been playing forever, Roethlisberger. So to give him a week off, that to me, that was not playing with fire, because the Pats were not losing in New England, losing at home in New England to the Jets. Not a chance. And, speaking of the Jets, how is Todd Bowles? First off, he gets a 2-year contract extension where he only should have gotten 1 year. He's signed for next year anyway. They should have given him 1 more year so next year he doesn't come in as a lame duck. How in the world do the Jets do that, number one? And then number two, how does Bowles not give Hackenberg, the guy they got from Penn State who drafted, second round a couple of years ago, third round, whatever it was, how do they not give Hackenberg a half the other day against the Patriots? How does he not get a half in the game? Petty had played 3 or 4 games in a row and it stunk. They had done absolutely nothing. You're telling me you can't get this Hackenberg that big? That bad? How does Hackenberg not get in there for a half against New England on Sunday afternoon? Really hard to believe. Anyway, that game was not a lot to watch. Basically, until you got to 4 o'clock, there was nothing going on. And 4 o'clock, the NFL was really salvaged by 2 things. By Marvin Lewis and Dirk Cutter. I mean, there was some drama in Buffalo, Miami, because you needed Buffalo to win. There was a little drama in the Chargers because you needed the Chargers to beat the Raiders to keep the pressure going. There was some drama in Tennessee with the Jaguars, so you kept an eye on that. And there was a little drama in Atlanta with Carolina. Other than that, so those are the things you had. What you needed was Baltimore, who you all thought and we all took for granted would definitely win the game. You needed the Ravens to be put in a tough spot by Cincinnati, which you did not expect, and you needed the Saints to have to work their rear ends off to beat Tampa to clinch the division, which you also didn't expect. And so in a lot of ways, Tampa and the Bengals preserved the integrity of Week 17 in the National Football League. I mean, obviously the Bucs must like Cutter. Gerald McCoy said favorite coach he's ever had, loves the guy. Winston said great things about him after the game, and they somehow, and Tampa played very well late in the year. Didn't have a lot to show for it. Lost a game to Atlanta, close. Lost to a game that Carolina they should have won. They lost to Detroit. They lost in overtime in Green Bay. I mean, they played very well late in the year, and for them to throw a bomb with 9 seconds to go from the New Orleans 30-yard line when they really could have kicked a field goal, and then he gets a touchdown out of it and knocked the Saints possibly out of the divisional championship. That's a great job by Tampa, and I felt good for Cutter and the Bucs, and they keep him, and the Bucs get an interesting win. And then, of course, Cincinnati, what a job. And very rarely do you ever come on radio anywhere in America the last 20 years on a Monday afternoon, or Tuesday in this case, and praise Cincinnati or praise Andy Dalton or praise Marvin Lewis. But today's the day you do that. What a job. What a job by the Bengals. I mean, first off, I was stunned they broke out to a 17-3 lead. And then when the Ravens came back and had that kickoff return to make the game 17-10, you figure, okay, that's going to change the whole game. And then they have the IT return, and Cincinnati gets the game to 24-10. And then when the Ravens go for it, and that took guts, 6 minutes to go third quarter, 24-10, 4th and 3, they go for it with that Andy Collins kid, and he reverses field and ends up in the end zone to make the game 24-17. Then you figure there's no way that the Bengals are going to hang on. And then Baltimore proceeds to score 10 more points to take a 3-point lead, and then have Cincinnati go 90 yards or thereabouts. I'm not sure how many yards the last drive was, but they have a lengthy drive. They succeed on a 4th down and 11 pass play to Boyd, open in the middle of the field, and end up winning the game. That is a absolute tremendous job by the Bengals. I was stunned, and that was over at 8 o'clock at night, and what a way to end Week 17 in the regular season. And it's been a bad regular season for the NFL, we all know that, but they went out with a bang. First off, the Ravens are very difficult to like. I don't think anybody in America really roots that hard for the Ravens. I mean, first off, they're the Browns, number one. Number two, Art Modell. Number three, Ray Lewis turns people off. Number four, you got Ray Rice. Number five, John Harbaugh's got no personality. And number six, then they had the audacity to moan and groan about playing at 4:30. How dare the NFL move us to 4:30 Week 17 to upset our fan base? Well, you idiot, they had to do that, Harbaugh. They had the Chargers in the same spot who needed your situation. They had to keep an eye on your game. You can't have you play at 1 and the Chargers play at 4. That ruins the whole idea. You got to have both teams playing at the same time. You're going for the same spot. Chargers playing the West Coast. I mean, how does Harbaugh not understand that? And so there wasn't anybody who was more delighted than me to see them knocked out of the postseason. Knocked out. In the wintertime. 3rd year in a row they have not made the playoffs. They have done, and I'll tell you right now, you can make an argument that this era is over. And you can make an argument. Now, they won't do it. And he's a good coach. But you can make an argument a change of scenery is due in Baltimore, and Harbaugh should go. 3 years in a row not making the playoffs. You can make an argument it's time for a change there. You really could. Now, they're not going to do it. The owners, Biscotti's not going to do that. But you could make that argument that it's time to make time. I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, they can't beat the Cincinnati Bengals at home to make the playoffs. I mean, are you serious? When they get a chance to play the Browns twice every year, and they can't make the postseason in that scenario in a rotten AFC. I'll tell you, that is, and I know that they've had some injuries, and obviously, a couple of years ago they had all sorts of guys banged up, and Flacco missed a good part of I get that, but you can make an argument. It's time for a change there. You can make an argument. And I tell you right now, if you kept Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati, I wouldn't argue. I swear to God, I wouldn't argue that much. They beat the Lions to knock them out of the postseason, and they turned around and knocked the Ravens out of the postseason. They had a little spirit the last couple weeks. Now, they were dead for 3 or 4 games. I mean, they didn't show up against the Bears. They were hopeless against Minnesota. So after they lost that game to the Steelers on Monday night, on that December 4th, they were shot. I mean, they took 2 weeks to get over that. But you can make an argument that you can bring Marvin back. That is a hell of a job by Cincinnati. I was very impressed with what they did. And I'll tell you, I did not have a major problem. I know people don't like the AFC playoffs. I don't have a major problem on the matchups in the AFC. I want Baltimore out. I think they're unappealing. We're sick and tired of watching them. So I have no issue with Baltimore out of there. None. Zero. Goodbye. I did not want to see a rematch with Tennessee and Jacksonville. And by having Buffalo sneak in, and it was good to see the post-game locker room in Miami with the Bills after the Bengals threw the touchdown pass. It's good that Tennessee goes to Kansas City and Buffalo heads to Jacksonville. Now, those are not great marquee games, but Buffalo's got a little karma going right now. You know, they got a little, America feel to it. End the drought. It's the Buffalo Bills, the Ragamuffin Bills. They send money to Dalton's charity. A lot of people meet them at the airport when they come home. That was quite a scene for Buffalo. So them in the playoffs is not the worst thing for the NFL. And Tennessee, which is a dull team and was fortunate to beat Jacksonville. Tennessee going to Kansas City, that's not a terrible game. They haven't played each other this year. Maybe they start the postseason with a bang. You know the NFL always puts an AFC South team in that 4:30 window. They had two choices this year with the two AFC South teams in. They opted to put Tennessee in that ESPN 4:30 nobody watches window on Saturday because I think Buffalo's got a little charm to them. So I think as a result, that's why the other team that starts at 4:30. But you know what? Those two games, although they're not great games and the AFC stinks overall, those are not terrible games in the AFC. Not terrible. Something a little different. And I give Jacksonville credit because Jacksonville played their rear ends off against Tennessee. And if the kid catches the ball in the end zone for a touchdown, and if the quarterback can play any better, they would have won that game because they only gave up. They played really well. Defensively, they were rugged. They played the whole game. Fournette played. That's a good job by Coughlin. They played their rear ends off against Tennessee. A little unlucky. No offense. Typical them, but they played hard. So I give them some credit. Played hard. If you go through the teams right now that are playing this weekend, here's what I would say before we take our first break and get your calls in. Hayden, you included. Buffalo, a little karma. I would not think that, McCoy is questionable. We'll have to wait and see on him. But Buffalo has a little karma right now. There's a little something about them. I'd be a little worried about playing the Bills if I was the Jaguars. That's number one. Number two, Tennessee, I don't think they're going to beat Kansas City. Kansas City right now has won 3 or 4 games in a row. Kansas City, if they win, they might be looped into that scenario with the Patriots, who they've already beaten. You got to like, obviously, the Chiefs to beat the Titans there on Saturday early in the afternoon. Carolina is an atrocious offensive team. They play good defense. They played well defensively. They tried too against Atlanta. The game was 7-7 in the third quarter. Carolina, Cam Newton is erratic. I mean, we all know that anyway. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But he was putrid on Sunday. You can't play worse. Their defense played hard. The game was tied in the second half. He killed them on Sunday. And that scares me if I'm a Saints fan because he'll play a little better. He's prideful. He'll play better this week. And they play, obviously, the late game on Sunday afternoon. Saints did not play that great late in the year. They lost in Atlanta. They lost in Tampa. They didn't play great in a couple games in their building late. The Jets, they kind of let hang around and everything else. I'd be a little worried about the Saints. I don't think Atlanta's long for this postseason. And I was surprised they put the Rams in prime time on Saturday night. Now, Al loves that game because he lives in L.A. and Al can walk to the Memorial Coliseum. So he loves that game with Atlanta. But I was a little surprised they put them on a Saturday night. I thought they would put them late Sunday, and I thought they would put Carolina and Atlanta on Saturday night. They opted for the Rams on Saturday night. And the Rams wanted to be stuck with the Eagles in the 1-4 deal in the NFC, and they got burned with that because the Saints lost. So the Saints will go play in Philadelphia, and the Eagles will get New Orleans, while the Rams get the tougher game at Minnesota. I don't know who to predict. There's really only 3 or 4 decent teams. The Eagles right now got major issues at quarterback. You can't expect Nick Foles to win 2 playoff games. New England and Pittsburgh are far and away the 2 best teams in the AFC. I like to put Jacksonville close, but not with their offense. They are by far the other teams are average. These 2 teams are very good, or at least good. And then in the NFC, you still got the question mark at Case Keenum. You still have the Eagles with the top seed. New Orleans has shown you some warts. Atlanta's not great. Carolina's got no offense, and the Rams are young. I don't know. Very tricky in the NFL right now. Very tricky. 18 after the hour. We'll take a timeout and continue. Mad Dog Unleashed.